Hello and welcome to grammar class. Today's topic is misplaced, squinting and dangling modifiers. But first off, what is a modifier? Well, the word to modify means to describe or to add some information about something or somebody. So in English grammar, a modifier is a word or a phrase or a clause that modifies or qualifies another word or expression in a sentence. In other words, a modifier has a subject of reference, which is a word or a group of words that it modifies in the sentence. We understand that a modifier is a word or a phrase or a clause, and a modifier describes or refers to a noun or a pronoun or a verb in the sentence. In this way, a modifier acts as an adjective or an adverb. Now see some examples of various types of modifiers on your screen. In the first sentence, he visits historical places. The modifier historical is acting as an adjective by modifying the noun places. In the next sentence, the phrase in the blue shirt is modifying the noun the boy by adding some information about it. And then in the sentence, we saw a hungry tiger chasing a deer. There are two modifiers. Here the first modifier is the adjective hungry describing the noun tiger. And the second modifier is the participle phrase chasing a deer, which is also referring to the noun tiger. In this way, we see that a modifier may be a word or a phrase, but it may also be a clause. For example, I do not like people who are lazy and indisciplined. In this sentence, the entire adjective clause who are lazy and indisciplined is modifying the noun people. In the following sentence, I was surprised to hear the news. The infinitive phrase to hear the news is modifying the past participle surprised. In the sentence, walking in the park, I saw a blind beggar. The participle phrase walking in the park is coming before the subject I to modify it. And in the last sentence, he spoke in a soft voice. The prepositional phrase in a soft voice is acting like an adverb by modifying the verb spoke. Thus we see that modifiers function either as adjectives or adverbs. And we also learn that a modifier comes either before or after its subject of reference in the sentence. Now we are going to study the three types of common errors made in the use of modifiers. First up is the misplaced modifier. First and foremost, we should remember that a modifier should be placed as close as possible to the word or expression it modifies in the sentence or to its subject of reference. So the error of misplaced modifier occurs when a modifier is not placed close enough to the word or expression it modifies in the sentence, resulting into a confusing and ridiculous meaning. So as the name suggests, a misplaced modifier is wrongly placed far away from the noun or pronoun it intends to modify. And consequently, the meaning of the sentence is confusing and unclear. Now look at the first sentence. Sitting on a chair, the puppy licked the master. Apparently, this sentence seems to suggest that the puppy is sitting on a chair and licking the master. But we know it is actually the master who is sitting on a chair. Here the modifier sitting on a chair has been wrongly placed before the noun the puppy and far away from its subject of reference the master. Hence the confusion. We can correct this sentence by placing the modifier or the participle phrase sitting on a chair immediately after the subject of reference the master. Now it's absolutely clear that the master was sitting on a chair while the puppy was licking him. In the next example also, the modifier injured in the accident has been wrongly placed before the subject the passers-by. So it seems that the passers-by were injured in the accident. So we have to restructure this sentence by placing the modifier injured in the accident immediately after its subject of reference, the man. Now it's clear that a certain man was injured in the accident and was rushed to hospital by the passers-by. So make sure that you place the modifier close enough to its subject of reference in the sentence. What about squinting modifiers? You see, a squinting modifier is usually an adverb or an adverb phrase or an adverb clause. In fact, a squinting modifier is a grammatical error because it sits in between two elements in a sentence and seems to modify either of them. I mean, it is not clear which element the squinting modifier is modifying, the one coming before it or the one coming after it. Consequently, there is a scope of two possible meanings or ambiguity in the sentence. For example, John said on Monday he would resign. In this sentence, the adverbial on Monday is a squinting modifier. Why? Because it's not clear whether the adverbial on Monday is modifying the verb said coming before it or the verb resign coming after it. I mean, you will wonder whether John made this statement on Monday or whether he would resign on Monday. Now, in order to remove this ambiguity or confusion, we have to place this modifier appropriately in the sentence. John said he would resign on Monday. No confusion now. His resignation is coming on Monday. And then the sentence on Monday John said he would resign means John made this statement on Monday. Similarly, in the sentence, tell her when she returns home I want to talk to her, the adverbial clause when she returns home is a squinting modifier. Why? Because this sentence may have two possible meanings. One, I have to tell her the message when she returns home. Two, you want to talk to her when she returns home. But there is no such ambiguity or confusion if the modifier is placed at the beginning of the sentence. When she returns home, tell her I want to talk to her. It means convey this message to her when she returns home. Well, the word dangling means hanging loosely. So a modifier is said to be a dangling modifier when its subject of reference or the noun it modifies is not clearly stated or mentioned in the sentence. Obviously, the error of a dangling modifier creates confusion because the noun it refers to is simply not mentioned in the sentence. Take for example the sentence, driving down the highway, the sun was setting behind the hills. The participle phrase, driving down the highway, is the modifier here. But which noun is it modifying or referring to? Does this sentence mean the sun was driving down the highway? Obviously not. But then it's not clearly mentioned who was driving down the highway. And as there is no subject of reference for this modifier, it's a dangling modifier in this sentence. Now we can correct this sentence by providing an appropriate noun or pronoun for this modifier. Driving down the highway, we saw that the sun was setting behind the hills. Terrified by the news of the pandemic, the flights were cancelled. Who were terrified by the pandemic? The flights? No way. So the modifier terrified by the news of the pandemic has no subject of reference or noun to modify in this sentence. Hence, it's a dangling modifier. We can correct this sentence by providing an appropriate noun or pronoun for this modifier. Terrified by the news of the pandemic, the authorities cancelled the flights. Now the modifier has a subject of reference, the authorities, and the meaning is clear. However, there are some exceptional dangling modifiers. In fact, by virtue of their idiomatic usage, they are perfectly acceptable even without a subject of reference. For example, generally speaking, women live longer than men. Here the expression generally speaking is a dangling modifier without a subject of reference, but it's perfectly acceptable in this sentence. Similarly, in the second sentence, considering his tender age is also a dangling modifier as it has no subject of reference in the sentence. And then in the last example, regarding this matter is a dangling modifier too. But remember, these are exceptional idiomatic expressions and so there is nothing wrong with them. Finally, here are some more examples of mistakes with modifiers. We saw a dead dog walking in the field. Here the misplaced modifier walking in the field seems to suggest that a dead dog was walking in the field. We can correct this sentence by placing the modifier walking in the field before the subject we. Walking in the field, we saw a dead dog. It means while we were walking in the field, we saw a dead dog. Making huge profits, a special bonus was announced for the workers. In this sentence, the participle phrase making huge profits is a dangling or unattached modifier. Why? Because this modifier has no subject of reference. It's not clear who made huge profits. As you know, when the noun or pronoun a modifier refers to is not clearly stated in the sentence, such a modifier is known as a dangling modifier. And that is the case here. However, we can correct this sentence by providing the missing subject of reference for this modifier immediately after it. Making huge profits, the company announced a special bonus for the workers. At last, take an example of a two-way or squinting modifier. We know that squinting modifiers are usually adverbials that seem to modify either of the two elements that come before and after it in the sentence. Taking painkillers often causes stomach ailments. In this sentence, the adverb often is a squinting or two-way modifier. Does this adverb modify the action of taking painkillers or the action of causing stomach ailments? I mean, it's not clear whether this adverb often is used for the verb taking or for the verb causing. We can remove this ambiguity by making the statement elaborately in a complex sentence. If one takes painkillers often, it might cause stomach ailments. So we understand from all these examples that the modifier should be placed as close to its subject of reference as possible in the sentence. That's the end of today's class. Hopefully you liked the video. Please be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more grammar videos. Thanks for watching.